David E. had been trying to get rid of Woojin for years. Sabotage, isolation, even attempted murder. Woojin, a brilliant scientist at Uman Technologies, built inventions that made him famous and made Davis furious. Every breakthrough made Woojin richer, left David with only scraps. David didn't want percentage. He wanted everything, and he was willing to kill for it. And this memory is where David decided to test how far a man could fall before he broke. As we enter, in this moment, he was being hunted, picked off one by one. And it wasn't even his choice, or because of one of his bad decisions. It was someone else's doing. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because thou is with me. Did he believe that? Had he done enough to ensure that he could believe that? Honestly, right then, he didn't know. The sun had scorched the desert as 110 degrees. Shin Woojin stood at the edge of Namid. The heat rippled across the horizon like a living thing. It had been 3 years since he had done a field test this raw. 3 years since he had had to prove himself. The idea that David E., his own boss, didn't trust his work anymore stung more than the heat ever could. He exhaled slowly. He was good at this. Always been. But as the wind dragged the sand across his boots, another thought crept in. He wasn't 35 anymore. The thrill used to feel invincible. Now it felt heavier. He thought of his family. He would need to slow down soon. He just hadn't expected it to start or end like this. His thoughts were shattered at the sound of shouting. He looked up. The men were driving away. For a second, he didn't process it. Then his stomach dropped. They weren't circling back. They were leaving. Woojin lunged for the satellite phone and radio, sand slipping under his boots. He dialed David's direct line. The call connected almost immediately. Too immediately. Testing conditions, he heard him say, as if he had been waiting. You said the device worked under unpredictable environments. The amusement in his voice struck something deep in Woojin's chest. If he could have reached through the receiver and wrapped his hands around David's throat, he would have. No extraction team, Woojin snapped. No equipment. No supplies. What does this have to do with testing my device? Silence. Then he heard a chuckle. Adapt, David replied. That's what great minds do. Then the line went dead. Woojin stared at the phone in disbelief. 4 men, 1 tent, a few bottles of water, barely enough food for a day and a half. The receiver slipped from his hand and fell onto the sand. Unacceptable. He should have been at home with Minsu. The thought had hit him just then. Serves him right. Then another. This was not the first time that he had experienced something like this. Again, he had to learn it the hard way. What's that saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me after that. That means I'm just a dumbass. The anger surged in him, hotter than the desert sun. As he watched the sand and dust clear as the evening fell, he thought to himself, as the background of the desert had become clear, it began to sink into him with a heavy weight. He had fucked him. Again. Night had fallen over Namid like a living thing.
Not a quiet descent, but a suffocating drop of darkness that swallowed the last line of the sun. The air shifted instantly. What had been a blistering heat just hours before had transformed into a cold so sharp it seemed to slice through the fabric and bone. Woojin sat alone inside a narrow canvas tent, listening to the wind drag grit across the ground. Each gust slapped the tent wall and made the tent poles tremble. He was wiping sand off his hands when he noticed his own fingers trembling. He paused, flexed them. They trembled some more. His breath stuttered in his chest, a small hitch, before returning to short, uneven bursts. He didn't know why. He just felt wrong. The land felt wrong. You say your invention works? There's really only one way to find out. Then the line had went dead. That moment kept echoing over and over in his mind. The tribal men driving off with the remaining equipment and most of the water, life-saving supplies, gone. His stomach ached. What a fool. What an absolute fool. Retirement was the first clear thought he had since the signal disappeared. Outside, one of the indigenous guides, Raku, laughed faintly by the fire. The warmth flickered against the rock walls, painting his sun-creased face with gold. The others murmured, speaking softly in their native tongues. Their voices tired, but still warmed after the long day. Woojin closed his eyes. Just breathe, he told himself. Just relax. A distant sound cut through his thoughts. A snap? No, a branch? No, heavier. A weight shifting in the dark. Woojin's eyes snapped open. His lungs tightened without permission. Outside, the fire crackled once, then went still. Silence. Complete silence. His heartbeat began to climb, thudding against his ribs. Then it happened. A scream tore across the desert, violent, raw, ripping from the deepest part of the body. Woojin jerked forward, breath catching in his throat. Another scream followed, higher, sharper, a sound no human should ever have to make. Woojin's hand shook uncontrollably as he reached for the tent flap. He forced himself to lift it just an inch. The moonlight revealed chaos. Raku was on the ground being dragged backward through the sand. His legs kicked violently, boots scraping as he clawed at the earth, leaving long grooves behind him. Something enormous had him by the shoulder. Woojin's breath collapsed. The creatures were only shadows, massive, low-slung, with hunchback and limbs too long for comfort. The moonlight flashed of wet teeth. Blood sprayed across the sand in a fine mist as the thing adjusted his grip on his shoulder. Raku's eyes found Woojin, wide, wet, wild with terror. His mouth opened, but only a strangled gasp came out. Woojin covered his mouth to keep from screaming. Tears instantly stung his eyes. His chest tightened so hard he thought he might break a rib. The creature yanked backward. Raku's body lurched. A sound followed, a deep, sickening rip, like thick fabric being torn, but wetter. Woojin's stomach flipped. Another guide shouted something in their language, panic, fury, and hurled a burning stick at the creature. It didn't flinch. It simply turned with inhuman speed and dragged Raku behind the rocks, claws scraping, teeth sinking deeper. Raku screamed, cut off in mid-breath. Silence slammed down over the camp again. Woojin stared at the spot where Raku had vanished. His breath came in sharp, broken pulls. He pressed his hand to his chest, trying to stop the panic from rising, trying to steady himself, but the air wouldn't go in right. His eyes blurred. Tears fell unchecked down his cheeks, hot against the cold desert air. He shut the flap slowly, hands trembling so violently the fabric fluttered. Inside the tent, darkness pressed close around him. His pulse roared in his ears so loud it almost drowned out the wind. He squeezed his eyes shut, whispering through shaking lips. If I make it out of here, if I survive this place, I'll go home. I promise. I'll go home. I'll be with my family. His voice broke. The wind howled outside, long, low, mournful, as if the ancient desert itself grieved the dead. Woojin sat there shaking, frozen, listening for the next scream, hoping it wouldn't be his. The sun had finally rose. He stepped out of the tent to take assessment. As he began to let his shoulders relax and let last night's shadows settle, he focused his eyes to the bright morning light. The sight remained gruesome. The sun was barely above the horizon, and already the air burned. 90 degrees, climbing. The desert didn't hide what happened. Raku's remains lay scattered across the sand. Not a body, fragments. The other men stood in silence, controlled, grieving in a way Woojin didn't understand. His stomach twisted. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't bad luck. David sent them there. No extraction plan, minimal water, bare rations,
A field test. Woojin's jaw tightened. What did he expect? For us to just die quietly? He thought to himself. He had went too far this time. Anger rose again. Hot, clean. The men gathered what they could, covered what they could, but still, the blood remained, and blood calls predators. They should have moved the camp, but they didn't. 2 nights had passed, each one opening just as the night before, with Woojin barricading himself in his tent. Another man had fell, and Woojin found himself riddled with anxiety. He found himself just digging and digging into the ground, trying to calm his nerves, when he finds this strange rock with remnants, strange markings he couldn't understand. He briefly showed it to Soku, an elder man, but the thought grew distant. It was really a conversation for another day, when he could actually process more clearly. Now it was about survival, and if he wanted to live, he had to clear his mind. The next day, Woojin knew he would have to be the one to pull himself together, or it would be the end of them all. He looked around grateful. He knew that they knew the land. They could have took off at any time, and they didn't. He had to take charge now, for his wife, for his daughters, and for them. Woojin worked through the heat the entire day without stopping. Sweat poured off him in sheets. Blood from the night before had dried stiff against his clothes. It clung to his hair, to his skin. By mid-afternoon, he took a blade and shaved his head clean. The hair had become unbearable, sticking to sweat, to blood, a constant reminder of what he had seen. He poured a little water, what he could spare over himself, just enough to survive the sun. Then he began again. He had the man dig, deep as they could manage, a narrow pit, wide enough for 3 bodies to crouch, stand really, pressed together. The sand gave away slowly, collapsing at the edges, but they kept going. The device only had a big enough shield to protect only 2 men at one time. Not really, 1 man, honestly. So Woojin recalculated the field angle. He worked, adjusting output and direction. If they had dropped below ground level, the device wouldn't need to shield all sides, only the opening. Less surface area, less strain, more chance to live. By dusk, the hole was ready. The hyenas arrived like clockwork, drawn by blood, drawn by routine. This time, Woojin didn't panic. The 3 men descended into the pit. Fire burned at the rim. Woojin activated the device. The shield sealed the opening. The first animal lunged and bounced off the shield with a sharp cry. They circled, snarled, scratched at the sand, but they couldn't get through. The night dragged, cramped and suffocating, knees pressed into ribs, backs against the dirt. But morning came. They were alive to see it. But relief didn't come with it, though. Just exhaustion. It was miserable, uncomfortable, barely survivable. But it worked. The next day, Woojin started digging another hole. The men looked confused. One tried to take the tool from him and insisted that he do it. But Woojin insisted. Woojin shook his head no. He pointed toward where Manchu had fallen, then toward the earth. They understood. Bury him. It took most of the day. They gathered what they could of Manchu's remains, carefully, respectfully, searching the sand and the rocks in silence. The sun burned overhead as they worked. No one complained, and no one rushed. They buried him deep, covered him properly, marked the place. The men stood still afterward. One murmured a prayer. Another pressed his palm toward the earth. Then they looked at Woojin. Not with suspicion, with something close to gratitude. He had taken care of their comrade. That mattered. Then their thoughts turned toward the situation again. Their food was down to the last shared ration. But night was falling, and it was one more night of hell. So they descended into the pit again as dust bled across the horizon. And like the night before, The shield held. The hyenas came and went, as did the rest of the evening shadows. They survived. And when the morning came, the sun had not come out yet. They had made a decision. They had to leave camp to go get food. Hope was beginning to drain, and distress began to show on Woojin's face. Soku, the older man, tried to break the tension by offering Woojin a gift of thanks. He tried to decline and insist food was what was needed now, but they knew reducing the stress was probably the most vital for survival at this point. One of the men had traced a marking into the sand. It was the same symbol Woojin had seen carved into the rock that was near his tent on the first night. They showed it to him. Intrigue struck him again. The light in his eyes flashed once more, long enough for Soku to see that his plan was working. They insisted. He hesitated only a moment before nodding, not even knowing what he was agreeing to, and then with careful hands, they carved the markings into his scalp. Shallow, deliberate. A reminder, if he survived, he would remember this place. If he died, it would mark where he fell. He knew that wasn't their intent, but it would serve the purpose. As the day dragged on, Woojin stopped thinking about rescue. He began preparing himself mentally to die there. No anger, no panic. As the evening turned into night, and night turned into morning again, acceptance came. He began to draft a note, and then he heard it. Just then he looked up and saw it, a jeep, rolling across the horizon, heat shimmering around it. Woojin squinted. Recognition hit him before relief did. Bastard, he muttered. What a bastard. 2 years had passed. The grand hall of Uman Technologies glowed under the soft amber lighting, the kind chosen for events meant to impress investors and stroke egos. Servers moved between tables with trays of champagne, and clusters of executives laughed louder than necessary. At the center of the table sat Woojin and his family. He kept his posture straight, almost rigid, the way a person sits when they know all eyes are on them. His wife Minsu sat beside him, elegant, beautiful, polished, but her attention drifted more to her phone than anything that was happening on stage. His older daughter Minji stayed quiet, body small, chin tucked as she looked around the room with uneasy curiosity. His younger child, Hana, leaned against her mother's arm, bored but happy to be out. Across the room, David E. stood surrounded by board members and senior executives. He wasn't on stage, but he commanded the room simply by being its owner. And he watched Woojin. Not in a way a proud CEO watched a rising star, but the way a man measured what he could take from another. Woojin looked away when he caught David staring. He felt his gaze too many times, calculating, hungry for credit that didn't belong to him. And on stage, the presenter adjusted the mic. Woojin shifted his focus and lended his attention as the presenter spoke. This year, we honor Dr. Shin Woojin for his groundbreaking advancement in transitional state stimulation. The applause rose. Woojin stood, hands clasped in front of him. Minso clapped softly without enthusiasm. Minji looked at her father with a faint smile, pride mixed in, but distant. Hana beamed, the only one that was truly excited. David's eyes shifted, not to Woojin, but to Minso. He watched the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the way she straightened her posture when people looked her way. He noticed her beauty before her marriage, and he noticed the tension in her jaw when Woojin's name was praised. A smile touched the corner of David's mouth. He saw openings. Woojin didn't notice the exchange, not fully, but something in him pulled tight, the way intuition knots itself before the mind understands why. He pushed it down. He spoke briefly at the podium, his words calm, professional, deeply modest. But when Woojin returned to his seat, he caught something. David leaning slightly to one side, speaking to his driver, eyes still on Minso. Woojin's brows tightened. He didn't trust that man under the best circumstances. What on earth was he doing now? He wanted to believe that he was jumping to conclusions, but he knew deep down he better keep his eyes on him. One last project to finish before he announced his plans to retire. Only God knows what he would do if he found out. Meanwhile, at the table, Minso forced a polite smile when Woojin sat. He caught it. He just logged it away. "You did fine," he heard her say. No warmth, just obligation. Woojin nodded. He sensed her distance, but he was too used to it to challenge it there. His eyes drifted to Minji, who clapped quietly with the manner of a child who wanted to feel proud but wasn't sure if she belonged. He reached under the table and squeezed her hand softly. She squeezed back, once, then she withdrew, retreating into herself again. Moments later, "I'm going to the restroom," Minso said. She stood, smoothing her dress before weaving through the tables. Woojin nodded, unaware of what, or who else would be meeting her near the restroom. Minso walked quietly down the hallway, heels clicking lightly. As she reached the turn toward the restrooms, someone stepped forward discreetly, a well-dressed man in a black suit, David E.'s driver. He offered the folded note with a simple bow. Minso froze. She looked around to make sure no one was watching, then she accepted the note. Her voice dropped. "Who is this from?" The driver kept his tone neutral. My employer. He asked me to give it to you privately." He bowed again and walked away, leaving her standing alone with the message. She opened it slowly. A name she recognized only from passing mentions. David E. A simple line beneath it. "I see you. If you ever need to breathe, meet me." Her pulse jumped. She didn't respond, but she didn't throw it away either. She slipped the note into her clutch, composed herself, and returned to the reception as if nothing ever happened. While dessert plates were served, the room loosened, people mingled, photographers floated between tables. David E. excused himself from the group of investors and crossed to speak to another executive. But every so often his gaze flickered toward Minso. Not in a way anyone else would notice, but she did. She adjusted her necklace, subconsciously straightened her posture. Attention, real attention. It was a rare thing in her life now. Woojin noticed her sudden shift, the way her expression softened for someone unseen. He didn't know who she was reacting to, but it tightened something inside of him. Not jealousy, not suspicion, just awareness. He glanced around the room, scanning faces, but by the time he looked toward David, the man was already greeting someone else. The next day, the house settled into its usual routine. Quiet, functional, almost too steady. A kind of silence that didn't feel peaceful anymore. Woojin buttoned his shirt at the kitchen counter while Minso packed Hana's lunch. They moved around each other the way people do when they live together too long without really touching. He leaned in and kissed her cheek, quick, light, barely a passing brush of lips. She didn't lean into it. She let it land. Woojin pulled back, wondering, not for the first time. It had become an ongoing thought that looped. Should I try harder? Should I hold her longer? But the moment quickly passed, and the questions evaporated the second he saw Minji come down the stairs. She walked slowly, hair slightly messy, eyes lowered the way kids do when they don't want to draw extra attention. Woojin caught the way she hesitated before entering the kitchen, as if checking to see who she had to share the room with. "Morning, sweetheart," he said. She nodded, barely whispering a return greeting. Minso noticed the hesitation too, but her thoughts drifted elsewhere. She wondered, is he ever going to kiss me properly? Is he ever going to really try? Or would their affection always feel like an appointment they kept out of habit? She exhaled softly and turned back to Hana's lunch. Minji opened the fridge and grabbed a yogurt, shoulders tight, movement small enough to go unnoticed, except Woojin. He noticed everything. He watched her carefully, worry threading through him. Is this just adolescence?
A phase? Or is she sinking into something deeper? He didn't like the answer that was forming in his mind. Minji had just barely taken 2 steps into the kitchen when Hana launched herself into Minso's arms. Minso laughed lightly, smoothing Hana's hair, her whole face softening. Woojin saw Minji's pause. Just a small shift backwards, barely even a step, but enough for him to feel something tighten in his chest. He glanced at Minso. She hadn't even noticed the retreat at all. Her attention stayed on the younger child, warm and easy, in a way that rarely was ever extended to Minji. And Woojin felt the difference. He always did. He interjected softly. Put a little extra fruit in Minji's lunch, please. She didn't eat much last night. Minso didn't even look away from Hana. She's fine. What she needs to do is clean her room. It looks like a tornado went through it. Woojin tried to soften the moment. It's okay. She'll do better. Just go a little easy on her, She's sensitive. Minso finally looked up at him, not angry, just drained. I am easy on her. She just needs to follow simple rules. Hana does. Woojin felt Minji stiffen at the comparison. Hana does? The words hung heavier than they should have. He swallowed at the frustration rising up in him. If he pushed now, it would turn into an argument that they'd have in circles. Minji grabbed her backpack quietly, trying not to be part of the tension. Woojin watched her. Watched the slight hunch in her shoulders. Watched how she kept her eyes to the floor. This wasn't just teenage behavior. This was something deeper. Something slipping. Something he didn't know how to hold together alone. He inhaled slowly. I need to talk to Zarya. Woojin had expressed that thought barely above a whisper. But Minso heard it. And for the first time this morning, she looked up at him. But she still didn't see what he saw. At the office, Zarya had just finished reviewing one of Woojin's earlier contracts when the screen glitched. The whole document froze and turned gray. She leaned forward. Great. Just great. At that moment, Emily from IT happened to be walking by. Hey, Em, Zarya said. Can you take a quick look for me? Emily stepped in, leaned over, typed a few lines. Then she paused. This isn't a basic freeze, she said quietly. Something's running in the background. Someone's rerouting your logs to a hidden mirror. Zarya blinked. What? Emily didn't explain. I'll patch it, but I'll get back to you later. Just check your inbox. Then she walked off. Moments later, Dina from legal stepped into Zarya's office and gently closed the door behind her. Hey, Zarya looked up. What's going on? Dina looked uneasy. Her voice was low. I saw something weird this morning while reviewing some case logs. Some of Woojin's patent files have been altered. Zarya sat up straighter. Altered how? His name is being replaced, quietly. David's name is showing up instead. And not just that, some filings are being pushed through a dummy company, offshore. Zarya didn't speak. She just stared at her. Dina nodded. Maybe I'm just imagining it, but I can't send it through email. It'll get flagged. Come by my place. I actually wanted to talk to you about something, and I'll show you everything. Dina left the office as quickly as she had come, while Zarya sat at her desk, looking perplexed and worried. Steps away, Woojin walked the long hallway toward legal, passing employees who nodded politely at him. He barely noticed them. His mind was somewhere else, back at the kitchen, back on Minji's face when Minso compared her to Hana. The hallway lights reflected off the glass walls, and his footsteps were heavier with each step that he took. He admired Zarya Taylor, more than he ever admitted, not in a romantic way, but the kind of way a drowning man admires a hand that kept him from going under. They had met in college during the worst years of his life, the year when he lost his first love, Hanu. She lost her battle with depression and committed suicide just after their first child, Minji, was born. He had been struggling and juggling classes, a newborn, grief, and a loneliness so deep he had forgotten what normal felt like. Most people saw him as awkward, too quiet, too intense. But Zarya never treated him like that. She treated him like he made sense. She was the first person who saw past his stiffness and recognized he wasn't emotionless, just trying to hold too much together without dropping pieces of himself. Her strength was effortless. Her compassion had weight. And her affection, quiet pats on the shoulder, warm smiles, a gentle, "You're doing fine," never made him feel weak. Without her help in the early years in college, he wasn't sure how he would have survived school, much less raised Minji with any kind of stability. He owed her more than she knew. And now, once again, she was the only person he trusted with something important. He reached the glass door to her office and exhaled. Zarya was still sitting behind her desk. She was typing a sharp email using her phone, with the efficiency of someone who didn't waste time or energy. She looked up the moment she sensed him in the doorway. Her face softened instantly. "Hey, Woojin. You're here early. Everything okay?" He stepped inside, closing the door halfway behind him. Her voice had that familiar steadiness he had come to rely on. She didn't rush him. She didn't assume. She simply offered space. Woojin took a breath. "It's Minji. Something's wrong. I can't reach her." Zarya straightened, concern replacing her usual calm. What happened?" He shook his head, eyes searching the floor, trying to find the words that didn't sound dramatic. "Well, she's setting down. Everything I tried just slides off. And Minso, she's harder on Minji than she is with Hana. It's getting to her. I can see it." Zarya didn't judge. She didn't jump to conclusions. She just listened. The same way she used to listen when they were in college, when his world was falling apart. Then she offered, "Do you want me to check on her? Just casually." Woojin nodded slowly in agreement. "Yes, please. I don't know what else to do." Zarya gave him a small, reassuring smile, one that told him that he hadn't failed, even if he felt like he was slipping everywhere else all at once. "You're a good father, Woojin. Let me help with this part. She trusts me. We'll figure it out." His chest loosened, just a little. He didn't say it out loud, but there were days when he wasn't sure what his life would look like without her steady presence. And for a brief moment, standing in the doorway to her office, he allowed himself to feel grateful for her. In a way he rarely allowed himself to feel for anyone, really. Later that evening, Zarya ended up leaving work late, but she decided the issues at work were piling up. And what on earth was going on with her computer? What was going on with the paperwork being switched around? It was strange. Why bother? David obviously didn't know that those patents were filed years ago. What paperwork is going to be submitted or changed at this point that would make a difference? The thoughts swirled as she pulled up to Dina's house. Something felt off. Then, as she pulled up, there were flashing lights, a crowd, yellow tape pulled tight across the yard. 2 officers stood near the door. She pulled up slowly, and before she could even get out, one of the officers stepped forward. "Can I help you, ma'am?" I'm supposed to meet a friend here, Dina Townsend. She lives here. This is her condo. Is everything okay?" The officer glanced toward the entrance, then back at her. "There was a break-in. She didn't survive." Zarya's chest tightened. A flash of terror moved through her whole body. A break-in? Here, on this side of town? What the hell? She sat there in her car, staring at the flashing lights. It took a moment for her brain to process what she had just heard. When she finally composed herself and was able to pull away, she pulled away very slowly, still looking back at the flashing lights until they faded in her mirror. What just happened here? She thought to herself. The next morning, Zarya came into her office to find the small cardboard box sitting on her desk. Someone had placed it there with no note. What made it more strange when she examined the items, it was some of her things mixed in the box. Inside was her mug, a few strange notebooks, a glasses case that she didn't recognize, and she opened it, and then she saw it. A flash drive sat inside. No note, no label. She looked around, then she slipped it into her bag and zipped it shut. She didn't say anything to anyone. Anxiety was building slowly. First a computer, then Dina. Now this box. She pushed the thought down. She had one more thing that she had to think about that day. Go check on Minji. The house had been quiet all day except for the hum of the laundry turning in the next room. Minso had been standing near the counter arranging afternoon snacks for Hana when the doorbell rang. She glanced at the clock. Woojin wasn't home yet. She wiped her hands and walked towards the door. When she opened it, Zarya Taylor stood there, confident, calm, dressed in her usual sharp work attire. Hi, Minso. Is Minji home? I just wanted to see her for a bit. Minso hesitated, her smile polite but strained. Oh, yeah, she's here. Woojin didn't mention you were coming by. Zarya's expression remained friendly. It was last minute. I just thought it would be good to take her out for a walk. Just talk. Minso felt something tighten in her chest. Since when does this woman get to decide when to talk to my stepdaughter? And why didn't Woojin mention it? Or did he just think it wasn't necessary to tell me? She nodded anyway, because pushing back would look petty. I see. Well, of course. She stepped aside. Zarya entered, and the moment Minji saw her whole expression lifted, shoulders loosening, eyes brightening, as if someone had finally opened a window in a stale room. Minso noticed the shift instantly. The warmth, the comfort, and the bitterness rose quietly. So why can't she open up to me like that? Why does she light up with her like that? Where's Woojin in all of this? Minji hurried over with her shoes already in her hand. Minji. Hi, Aunt Zarya. Zarya smiled warmly. Hey, sweetheart. Ready to go out for a bit? Yes. Minso watched the interaction with a mix of confusion and annoyance. Zarya didn't force herself. Minji just simply gravitated toward her, naturally, easily. Like something Minso couldn't create no matter how hard she tried. Zarya had guided Minji to the front door, opening it for her with a gentle motion, letting the girl step out first. Minso watched from the entryway, arms folded lightly across her torso. Now, the difference between how Minji acted with her and how she acted with Zarya felt sharp, undeniable, and it stung more than she expected. Zarya gave a polite nod before closing the door and walking out. Minso stood by the window, watching them walk to the car. Zarya opened the passenger door for Minji, the girl sliding in with a smile. Minso hadn't seen it all week. That was the moment Minso felt completely outside her home. A stranger to her stepdaughter. A stranger to her husband's history that he never fully let her into. She exhaled slowly. Her eyes drifted toward her purse, to the folded note with the phone number from the ceremony. She hesitated only for a second before picking it up. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Then she dialed. The line rang once, twice. Then a calm voice answered. This is David. Nervousness struck. She froze for a heartbeat. David who? A soft, knowing pause. David E. from Uman Technologies. Her breath caught. And just like that, the resentment, the loneliness, The need to feel seen finally found a place to land. It was Friday evening. The house was quiet in a way that made Minso feel strangely alone. Hana was spending the night at a friend, and Minji was with Zarya again. An arrangement of some sort that Minso pretended didn't bother her. And Woojin, he had went back to work for yet again another late-night meeting. The kind that always came before long work trips. He said he was going to retire. But she knew that wasn't going to ever happen. Not really. She didn't know if it was because he used the time away to get away from her or if it was really about his work. 2 women and a job was the baggage that came along with Woojin. And Minso, she was tired of being the last bag, the 3rd bag on his cargo cart. She thought about giving him an ultimatum, but then she thought to herself, for what? It wouldn't make him love her again if he ever did. She stood in front of the mirror by the door, smoothing the front of her dress. It was elegant, understated, the kind of thing she used to wear when she was presenting research. Before marriage, before children, before a career slipped quietly behind her, and she became her husband's shadow. Her thoughts were broken as the headlights swept across the front window. The car had arrived. She took a slow, deep breath, grabbed her clutch, and stepped outside. The sedan waited with the interior lights glowing softly. She hesitated only a moment before sliding inside. The leather was warm from the sun still, faintly scented with something expensive. She clasped her purse tighter than necessary. The driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Before he spoke, her mind drifted. How did things get like this? How did she go from being the woman everyone wanted on their research teams to someone who barely gets a full sentence out of her husband? She remembered the awards she had won earlier in her career. Conferences where she felt sharp, visible, relevant. Then she thought of Zarya, Woojin's friend. The ease between them, the familiarity, the trust. Something she had never shared with her own husband. A dark question crept in. Did something ever happen between them? Or does he just admire her because she was everything she stopped being? Her stomach tightened. The driver's voice broke her thoughts. Ma'am, is everything okay? Oh, just family issues. The rain tapped lightly against the window. She watched it trail downward, the ache in her chest deepening. Woojin barely kissed her this morning. A routine peck, like he was kissing air. Does he even see me anymore, she thought. Her phone buzzed. A text. It was David. Take your time, I'm here. Emotion rose unexpectedly. The sedan slowed outside of an upscale restaurant. Warm light spilled across the pavement as the driver opened the door. Have a good evening, ma'am. Thank you. Kamsahamnida. Inside, David E. stood when she approached the table. He didn't look dangerous. He looked welcoming. The booth was soft, intimate. There you are, he said with a smile. She sat smoothing her dress. Long day, he asked. Long life, she said with a tired laugh. Woojin left again with barely saying a goodbye. The girls asked for him all morning. That must have been difficult, David said softly. Doing everything on your own. Her shoulders softened at the validation. I feel invisible at home, she whispered. I used to think that we'd be a family forever. Now, I don't know what we are. David reached for her hand, slow, gentle. You deserve to be seen, Minso. She didn't pull away. I didn't come here to make excuses, she said. I just needed to feel like someone noticed me. His voice lowered. I do notice you. Their hands stayed joined. 2 people sitting across a table. One feeling lonely, one offering comfort. Both crossing a line that none of them could ever step back from. 6 months had passed since the first date with David. Minso grew steadily distant. Woojin noticed the distance, but he pushed it down. He tried to bury the ache beneath his work. The work David insisted required a year-long project overseas. He said he was going to retire and try to fix his marriage, but the truth was that he was scared. He had built many things in his life, groundbreaking inventions. But building a healthy marriage? Please, not even close. His chest tightened at the thought, just swirling in his mind. Retire. The thought terrified him, that he would be left alone with Minso. He would have to practice affection, learn to hear her, and nurture her. It was easier to build a time machine, he thought to himself. Night after night, Woojin asked himself, should I just end this? Would it hurt the girls more? Am I strong enough to raise them alone again? Or will I break them if I leave? The fear always stopped him. And then, one afternoon, a courier arrived at his office door. These require your signature, sir. The man handed him a crisp white envelope. A not-so-familiar return address attached. Seoul Family Court. Woojin's stomach dropped. Hand shaking, he opened it. Divorce papers. Filed months ago. Hearing scheduled. Custody arrangements already proposed. Claims of abandonment during international travel. He felt the world tilt. His family, his marriage, his life was ending. And he had never been told. He bolted from his office, racing toward the airport as if running could stitch something back together. But inside, everything was breaking. Hours later, Woojin finally reached home. The front door swung open to silence. The wrong kind of silence. Cold, hollow. Drawers opened. Drawers emptied. Closets cleared. Her scent gone from the bedroom. Her slippers missing. His knees weakened. Something inside him cracked. He dialed the only person who could tell him the truth. Zarya answered the phone on the second ring. Woojin? I thought you were still abroad. Are you all right? She's gone, Zarya. He choked out. Everything is gone. I got served divorce papers today. I didn't even know she filed. Why didn't anyone tell me? A heavy silence. Woojin, she whispered. I thought you knew. Knew what? Her voice tightened with reluctant honesty. She moved in with David a month ago. The blow knocked the breath out of him. David E? He whispered. My boss? I'm so sorry. Honestly, when you took that trip to Greenland, I thought you did it to run away from the drama. I tried to reach out to you, but you didn't have a signal up there. Honestly, I thought it was by design. Woojin's stomach twisted. He sent me abroad, he said slowly. He insisted that I take that project. He said it was urgent. Zarya inhaled sharply. Oh, God. He didn't send you away for the project. Anyo. No. He sent me away so he could take my wife. A week later, Woojin sat on a wooden bench outside the courtroom, divorce papers trembling in his hands. He looked older than he had the day before, drained, hollow, nearly transparent. He had planned to walk in alone, ready to just surrender, ready to sign whatever Minso wanted and let the pain in quickly. And then he heard it, footsteps, approaching. Zarya. She rushed toward him in a black tailored suit, eyes full of worry and fire all at once. Woojin, do you understand what she's asking for? She wants everything, Woojin. He lowered his eyes. Let her have it, he said, sounding defeated. Maybe I deserve... No, stop. Her voice cut through the fog, sharp and unmistakably protective. Listen, Woojin, She's asking the court to split your assets down the middle. Yes, but she's also specifically asking for partial control of your patents. The wording is suspicious. I'm suspecting David has more to do with this than Minso. Your inventions, ownership rights, everything and anything you've ever created, she snapped. Woojin, you gotta snap out of this. Woojin froze. If she wins that, David E. wins. Is that what you want? A tremor ran through him. Anyo. No. Exactly. And that's why you're not going in there alone. She shifted closer, her tone softening with something deeply personal. Woojin, you can't be afraid to be alone. You've survived worse than this. And you're not alone, okay? I'm here. I'm fighting with you. He swallowed hard, emotion thick in his throat. I don't want to lose my girls, especially Minji. She needs me. Zarya nodded. Then fight for her. Fight for her custody. Fight for your life's work. Fight because you deserve to keep what you built. And because she deserves a parent who doesn't give up on her. Woojin drew in a long breath, shaking. Then slowly, he straightened his spine. His eyes sharpened. Something steadier returned to him. Zarya stood and smoothed his jacket. Let's go in together. He lifted his head slowly. He rose to his feet, still shaken, but no longer broken. His voice was hoarse when he answered, tired and overwhelmed, but he stood. And together, they entered the courtroom. The doors opened, and Minso turned sharply in her seat when she saw Woojin walk in with Zarya at his side. Her expression twisted, surprised, offended, and seriously furious. She had expected him weak, alone, ready to sign everything away. Instead, he walked in with his ally, his confidence, his fight. Zarya whispered one last line as they approached the judge's bench. Chin up. You belong here as much as she does, she heard her say. Woojin lifted his head. Minso shifted uncomfortably, eyes narrowing, realizing this certainly wasn't going to be the easy victory she thought it was. And for the first time, David E., seated behind her, watched Woojin with something new in his gaze. Not amusement, not pity, not annoyance. Because he had planned for a broken man. Instead, he got a man standing back up. When the heavy wooden doors clicked shut behind them as they exited the courtroom after the hearing. For a moment, no one moved. Minso's face fell as she looked at him standing strong beside Zarya. David's expression tightened, annoyed, displeased, and caught off guard. This wasn't going to be easy, and for the first time, they both knew it. The sun was bright, too bright, reflecting off the concrete like it was mocking all of them. David stopped abruptly at the bottom of the steps. Minso nearly walked into him. His voice was low, controlled, the kind of calm that hides razor edges. You told me he wouldn't fight. Minso swallowed, her face stiffening. He never does. He wasn't supposed to today. David looked out across the courtyard where Woojin and Zarya had stood speaking quietly a few feet away. His jaw ticked. He's getting his confidence from her. He didn't say Zarya's name, but Minso's eyes narrowed anyway. I can handle her. Can you? That stung. Minso's breath caught, the fear rising in her chest. She reached for David's arm, gently, pleading. Don't do that. Don't start pulling away from me now. David pulled his arm from her grasp, subtle, but unmistakably cold. Results, Minso. That's what I'm looking for. Results, not emotions. He rolled his eyes dismissively. Then he walked off toward the parking lot. Minso stood frozen, the realization hitting her. She wasn't just losing the case. She was losing David. And fast. The blinds were half closed, leaving warm stripes of afternoon light across Zarya's desk. Woojin sat across from her, shoulders heavy, the exhaustion clear in his eyes. He stared down at the paperwork in front of them, pages outlining custody, assets, division of property. His voice was barely above a whisper. Maybe I should just give her what she wants. Zarya's pen froze in her hand. No, Woojin, no. I just don't want to do this back and forth, he said. I don't want the girls to feel torn. And I don't... Zarya leaned in, her voice firm but gentle. Woojin, this isn't about child support or splitting furniture. She's asking for everything, even your invention rights. That's not normal. Woojin, this is a divorce. And this, what she's doing, is strategy. Woojin blinked, absorbing her words. No, she wouldn't. Not the patents. She never really cared about my work anyway, Woojin said. Zarya shook her head. She doesn't, but he does. Woojin tensed. Zarya's phone buzzed. She checked the caller ID, a number she recognized from earlier. David. She answered, keeping her tone neutral. This is Zarya. David's voice came in smooth and calculated. We're willing to negotiate. 50% of his invention rights in exchange for primary custody of Minji. Zarya's stomach tightened. I'll present it to him. She hung up. Her eyes met Woojin's. He was already looking defeated. Just get it over with. I can't do this anymore. Zarya shook her head slowly and firmly. Woojin, invention rights aren't just business. They're your life's work, your identity, your legacy. She leaned forward. If you give those up, you'll lose your future you built for your daughters. You'll lose you. Woojin's eyes closed, pain wavering on his face. Zarya quickly turned and picked up her phone again. Then she dialed David's number. So does he agree? Zarya's voice was steady. He declines the offer. She hung up before David could respond. David slowly lowered the phone. Minto stood near the window, her hands squeezed tightly, anchoring herself. David began to pace. He declined. He declined both offers. Minto's breath caught. I don't understand. He never fights. He never... David stopped pacing, turning back to her. He's slipping out of your control. Minto stepped forward, voice trembling. I feel like I'm losing you. I'm not losing everything I've built. Then fix it. Silence. Complete silence. Something inside her broke. Then it hardened. I have an idea. A way to make him give up completely. Finally, David turned. His eyes sharpened. I'm listening. Just give me until tomorrow. Minto stood staring at herself in the mirror, the regret feeling like a mountain caving in on her. She couldn't even breathe. She had made a horrible mistake. She ruined everything. No, Zarya, that wench. She's ruining my life. She stared at herself. She only has two choices now. Go back, beg Woojin to take her back, or all she needed was to get him to sign. And then she could have everything she ever wanted all at once. She stood there. Then she decided. She had come too far now to turn around. Forward. She could only go forward. Minto sat at the dining table, sleeves rolled up, medical manuals spread across the glossy surface. Her hands shook, not from ignorance, but from conscience. She wasn't guessing. She wasn't reckless. She understood exactly what she was doing. She studied chemical interactions, metabolic rates, sedatives, paralytics, oxygen deprivation curves, charts she used to teach in her earlier career, before she gave it all up, before Woojin became the scientist in the family. She muttered to herself as she read, voice trembling but precise.
It has to mimic hypoxia without causing it. Slow the heart, not stop it. Deepen unconsciousness. Depress the CNS, but not damage it. Her mind raced, calculating, adjusting. David leaned against the doorway, watching her, impressed, impatient, uninterested in her emotional turmoil. "So can you do it?" she heard him say. She swallowed hard. "Yes, I know exactly the combination of what I want to use. Pufferfish." David's eyes widened. "It's short-acting, treatable, and reversible. And it gives us the time we need to mislead him to believe that she's gone. Low detectable markers." Her hand clenched into fists. "Woojin will lose hope for sure. He will just give up then. I'm certain of it. It will just look like she just slipped away." David nodded. "Then do it. Before he regains momentum. Get it done." He left her alone with her guilt. Minso closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. But her mind was razor sharp. Too sharp. The kind of clarity that appears when someone has crossed a moral line and has no way back. She whispered to herself, "I'll fix it. I'll fix everything. Everything will be fine." Even though she knew she was breaking everything instead of fixing it. The late sunlight drifted through the curtains, soft and warm, a deceptive calm. Minji sat at the kitchen table, legs pulled up under her, picking with her nails. She maintained that sluggishness of someone already very low in spirit. Minso stood at the counter, stirring something in a glass, colorless, harmless looking, precise. She turned, placing the food in front of Minji with a falsely gentle smile. "Try a little, sweetheart. You barely touched your lunch." Minji nodded, weary but obedient. She took a few bites. Enough. Minso watched her carefully, almost scientifically. Seconds passed. Then, Minji's fork loosened from her hand. Her eyes blinked, slow, slower, as if her mind was dipping beneath water. "Oh, Ma, I feel weird. My mouth feels tingly," Minji said. Her body began to sway. Minso rushed forward just before Minji collapsed out of the chair. Her limbs limp, breath faint and shallow. Minso dropped beside her, checking her pulse at her neck. There it was, thready but present. She wasn't gone, just pushed to the very edge. Minso's hands trembled as she whispered, It's okay, baby. It's only temporary. You'll be fine." But the tears that slipped down her face betrayed her. Moments later, she lifted her phone with shaky fingers and dialed David's number. He answered on the second ring. "Is it done?" Her voice cracked. "Yes, it's done." David exhaled with a quiet satisfaction. "Good. Call him." And he hung up. Minso's looked towards her daughter's room, a wave of guilt crashing so violently she nearly choked on it. She let the feeling overtake her as she called Woojin. Woojin stood in the living room, jacket still on, stress pulling at his expression. He had just returned from another legal meeting when his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen and saw it was Minso. He answered immediately. "Yoboseo? Hello?" Her voice came through breathless, shaking, rehearsed fear layered with a hint of real terror. "Woojin, Minji, she collapsed. The doctor said they think it's suicide." The phone slipped from his hand. The world vanished beneath him. He almost collapsed to the weight of his knees shaking, hands clutching at nothing, breath ripped from his body. He turned. The room was so quiet and still, you could hear a pin drop. "No. What do you mean? My daughter is dead." He collapsed to the floor, sobbing violently. If this story pulled you in, like and subscribe for the next chapter of Hellwalker. Visit ScieryStories.com to download a Wi-Fi free version and continue the journey. See you there.